In the news tonight, a report on the 8th Viticulture Seminar being held at the Tocal Agricultural College. The three-day seminar is focusing on some of the main aspects of the wine and table grape industries.
For all the news,
join us tonight
at 6.
The spectacular Silver's Grand Magic Circus has arrived in Newcastle. The show features not only the world's youngest lion trainer and trapeze artist, but one of the greatest illusionists, ringmaster Ross Givington.
For all the news,
join us tonight
at 6.
Being number one began early for this BMX bandit. 2 years ago, we first met up with Clint when he became Australia's under-5s champion, with his sights already set on a world title. Now, a little way down the BMX competition track, Clint has reached that goal. Last year, the GT Factory team, Australia's top BMX racing squad, took Clint under its sponsorship wing. Since then, the 7-year-old has won most major meetings, including Miami, the ACT Super Nationals and the Pepsi Winter Open at Cardiff. Clint's performance at the Easter Australian titles gained his selection in the national team that will contend the World Championships in Florida next month. The United States is regarded as the home of BMX racing, with the Americans dominating the competition. But for this determined youngster, his game plan is all worked out.
America, just how tough is the competition going to be over there? What are you going to have to look out for?
All the hard people and all the competition.
Are you going to be a next world title holder?
Yeah.
Mr Walker was in Long Jetty today to officially open this complex of 35 new pensioner apartments. While it was a happy time for Rosie and Stephen Purcell, who, after a long wait, were the first to receive keys to their new unit, Mr Walker admitted that there were many people on the Central Coast who were not so fortunate. He says the state government is doing everything it can to ease the public housing crisis, but admits that the shortage in the area is the worst in the state.
There's 3,800 people on this waiting list here, which is, for an area, it'd be the biggest in Australia.
What do you suggest to them?
Well, I'm suggesting the government's doing a first-rate job. $40 million worth of construction going on at the very moment, something like 600 units under construction. And we recognise the problem and we're doing a lot to meet it.
On the issue of negative gearing, Mr Walker says he hopes it will be allowed once again in the next few months and thinks it will greatly ease the rental situation because more investors will come back into the market.
Well, I think it will get people reinvesting in rental accommodation, that is landlords, owners of rental accommodation, which is something that hasn't been happening. The very opposite's been happening, and that will reduce rents and certainly improve the lot of those tenants in the private rental market.
Like any form of cancer, breast cancer can have devastating effects if it's not detected early. So a new blood test being developed by Newcastle University may be good news. According to Dr Cheng Smart, one of the prime movers behind the study, breast cancer cells secrete tumour indicators in the bloodstream. These tumour markers are substantially higher in women with breast cancer or with benign lumps. Dr Smart says their research may lead to a new method of detecting breast cancer.
We're trying to find out whether, after screening a very large cohort of breast cancer patients, following them through from before surgery to sometime after surgery, to determine whether the level of this substance in the blood changes with the clinical progress as well as with the type of treatment that they are getting.
So far, the study has been going for 2 years and about 1,300 people have been studied. The results have been collated on this computer. But the research team still needs to test more postmenopausal women and those who've had a baby in the last 3 or 4 months.
The course which finished today was conducted by the Australian Institute of Energy, the Marine Engineering Department of the Newcastle Technical College and the Gas and Fuel Corporation of Victoria. BHP engineer and secretary of the Newcastle Institute of Energy Group, Mick Field, says the course was designed to show engineers and maintenance personnel how to better utilise steam energy. What do you hope they've got out of the course?
The understanding about the properties of steam, to go back and look at their own plants and to try and see where they could use that steam more efficiently and save their companies dollars.
The workshop is the first of its kind and is expected to be held annually.
In tonight's news, northern coal miners go on strike for 48 hours following a mass meeting at Branxton this morning. The men are protesting against developments in the coal crisis. At least 700 workers face imminent retrenchment starting at Saxonvale Colliery tomorrow.
For all the news,
Join us tonight
at 6.
It has never been easy to define what is craft and what is art. Invariably, the boundaries start to blur. Nowhere is this more apparent than an exhibition called A Decade of Craft, currently on at the Lake Macquarie Gallery. The works in this exhibition are superb and range from this collage, assembled from handmade paper with wax, dyes and thread, to these unusual Japanese eating utensils made of beech, cedar and cane. The notion of a simple bowl takes on a new dimension with this enormous work which has been hand-carved from white gum, and this leather bowl which was formed when the leather was wet. The exhibition also features some curiosity pieces, like this belt called Australian Fetish, with all sorts of plastic objects attached. Some of the more offbeat items also include this neck piece with thorns, and 2 works entitled Bikey Bracelet, which are made of leather, brass and synthetic fur.
Despite the State League being an open competition, both Newcastle and AIS teams contained only under-21 players. AIS played today with a very experienced side, with 8 of the 9 girls squad being in the Australian under-21 squad. The Canberra girls had too much experience for the locals, winning 35-26. Best shooter for Newcastle was replacement goal attack Joanne Davrin with 17 from 27 and Diane Bray 9 from 26. Best for the locals was impossible to choose, with all girls playing to their best. The Canberra girls and their coach Gay Teed are staying in Newcastle overnight to take part in a coaching seminar tomorrow. Today's match was the last in a 3-match 2-week tour by the service's representative side. Players employed in the Air Force, Navy and Army make up the service's side, with players coming from as far away as Cairns and Adelaide. The visit to Newcastle is the first for 2 years, with the visitors proving far too strong for the locals. Services led by 6 goals at half-time and won the match 18-10, 118 to Newcastle's 6-7, 43. Paul Heatley scored 3 goals for Newcastle, while George Langstrom kicked 5 for Services. In the curtain raiser, Newcastle City 8-11, 59 beat Williamtown 7-11, 53.
It was just before the start of the 1200-metre Dumeric Maiden Handicap when the bridle of Ready No More broke at the barrier. The horse, tipped as second favourite, bolted and, left without any means of stopping, jockey Wayne Harris decided to bail out, misjudging his landing. Yesterday, the 3-year-old gelding was playing it cool at the Broadmeadow stables of trainer Ray Wallace after the flighty end to its first start. For the past 9 years, the 26-year-old Muswellbrook champion jockey has ridden a string of winners for both Wallace and other trainers. Just last week, Harris returned to Australia after riding in Singapore. Ray boasts he's the best and, despite newspaper headlines, says the young gifted jockey will return to the saddle and the track just as soon as he can.
He wasn't seriously injured at all, but of course we didn't know that until a couple of hours later. At the time it did look bad, but afterwards, when they'd done the x-rays and so on, they found that it wasn't serious at all. The only breakage he had was his thumb, his left thumb. He broke his thumb and pulled the cartilage from there, and apart from being sore and what have you, he's quite okay.
And what happens to Ready No More?
Well, Ready No More will race again. Hopefully he'll ride him and win on him. I hope so, for his sake anyhow.
Okay, that's fine.
The $120 million Hunter Sewerage Project and Westlake Sewerage Scheme was announced late last year by the Public Works Department and Water Resources. The project followed detailed studies which showed the existing sewerage facilities on the west side of the lake couldn't cope with the growing community. The West Lakes project will cost $60 million to be split 3 ways between the Lake Macquarie City Council, the Hunter District Water Board and the Department of Public Works. The current proposal recommends 2 regional treatment plants, one at Rathmines, the second in the southern catchment area south of Dora Creek. But it's where the effluent will end up that has both residents and the council concerned. Mayor Jeff Pasterfield predicts that the final decision will rest on economics, but says council has taken a firm stand on the environmental future of the lake.
We are asking is that the EIS pertain only to an ocean outfall situation and a land disposal situation, and not to waste the money or the time in seeking to establish an outfall situation in Lake Macquarie.
Over the next 30 days, the residents of Lake Macquarie will have a final chance to have their say in the $60 million Westlake Sewerage Scheme. An environmental impact statement will then be compiled, the results to go before council for its final decision. But that's not expected until early next year.
The Newcastle JCs is the only branch between Sydney and Tamworth, and at the moment has only 15 members. Australian JC's theme this year is training tomorrow's leaders today. However, the locals can't get the theme fully operational because of a lack of interested people to train. Greg Smith says there are plenty of advantages in joining the Newcastle JCs.
People generally join to meet other people that are motivated and interested in things that they're interested in. They come along for those social reasons and they see what JCs has got to offer, and they see that we're developing people's personalities, bringing it out in them, developing some self-confidence. We do our debating and oratory. We organise all sorts of different projects that involves getting in, chairing a meeting, organising things, and this training aspect comes out in it. through all the community work that we do and what we can do for this city.
"29-year-old Greg Heyman is no newcomer to weightlifting. He won gold at last year's Commonwealth Games in the 52-kilogram bodyweight division. But one of his greatest sorrows is that his biggest weightlifting rival, Indian Matuj Swami, failed to compete at the Edinburgh Games. This weekend, the two are finally set for a showdown at the Commonwealth and Oceania Weightlifting Championships to be held at the Australian Institute of Sport in Canberra. Heyman is training hard and is confident he will emerge victorious.
It seems to be a bit of a no contest. Every time we want to compete against him, he doesn't show up, so this will be the first time and I'm looking forward to beating him.
Perhaps the hardest part for him is sticking to the strict diet necessary for him to shed the extra kilograms in time for Saturday's weigh-in.
It takes a lot of courage. There's a lot of meat pies and I can smell, and a lot of hamburgers. I'd like to sort of get stuck into them, but I know what I have to do, and it just takes a bit more courage, I think.
State Environment Minister Bob Carr says the government will spend $1 million this year to upgrade the Booty Booty State Recreation Area, Yagon Beach near Seal Rocks and Legs Camp in the Mar Lakes National Park. Mr Carr says it's all part of the state government's commitment to conservation.
For all the news,
join us tonight
at 6.
Building union delegates met for more than an hour today to decide how they could intervene to ensure the preservation of this prime waterfront site to go under the auctioneer's hammer on Thursday. They want the archaeological site quarantined until the full extent and importance of the find has been determined. Archaeologists and historians claim the site, which was excavated only last week, is Australia's earliest known industrial site. It was once a convict lumberyard and stockade. The unions also want other parts of the site to be made into parkland and think the station master's cottage and the railway pay office should be restored. The unions decided today that they would impose green bans on the site to prevent any building. And according to Trades Hall Secretary Peter Barrack, the first action will be taken on Thursday at the auction.
The Premier, or the Premier's representative doesn't intervene and delay the auction prior to Thursday, then the building unions will be notifying or the Premier's representative that there's a total green ban on the State Rail Authority property.
Some assistance to
An aggregate meeting of members of the 5 unions involved took place at Branxton this morning. The men were told that Coal and Allied is the only company in the north to have reacted to overtime bans by standing people down. And the men were unwilling to accept, as they put it, the breaking down of conditions won by their fathers. The 400 stood down for refusing duties outside normal working hours, and more than 1,000 others voted overwhelmingly in favour of continuing the stoppage, which began earlier in the week. Jim Hayes is president of the Northern Miners Federation.
Based on the conference that's arranged with the Prime Minister in Canberra next Wednesday, that both sides should acknowledge that there should be no escalation to the dispute, and we have acknowledged that and supportive of that. In fact, we approached the company that the proper thing to do would be to withdraw from their action of stand downs and allow the mines to resume in an atmosphere that would be receptive to probably a much more favourable atmosphere of conference in Canberra on Wednesday. Now, the company have clearly said that they wanted to extend the privileges of the award in the extreme, and that they want people to react and respond on request to work overtime for all reasons. Now, we're quite happy to work overtime where it's needed, particularly around the areas of safety or urgency. We've demonstrated that at other mines. We've even demonstrated it within their own mines.
Late this evening, Bruce Thompson, Chief Executive of Coal and Allied, confirmed his company would not be backing down. Mr Thompson said C&A is losing $2.5 million a day as ships are waiting to load 177,000 tonnes of his coal. The company has legally declared the ship's fate beyond the control of the shipper and has left it in the charterer's hands whether they wait off Newcastle or seek cargoes elsewhere.
I think we need to understand too is that we had discussion with the district officers of the union as a prelude to talking to our own mine workers, and we'd put to them the difficult economic circumstances of the industry. They are well aware that what we need for the Hunter Valley mines to survive is a relaxation or an increased flexibility of working arrangements, not further tightening. Now, it's fine to say that traditionally in the Hunter Valley, when there's a threat to jobs, we impose overtime bans, and that generates the need for more employment. But that thinking just simply can't work in the present economic climate.
But couldn't you, just for the sake of the present climate, accept the overtime bans to keep your coal moving?
Regrettably, one of the big problems of the Hunter Valley at the moment, and the position we find ourselves in, is the number of things which under duress we've been forced to accept just to keep the coal moving.